Welcome back to the most professional StarCraft tour. I'm excited to introduce the reigning GSL champion, the Zerg player in the blue, the Rocky Zerg. It's Solar. And on the other side, an old player, but he still checks out. In the red, we have Ryung. With over a decade since his debut, yes, in today's day and age, still showing good games for the fans. And speaking of those with over a decade of experience and still showing good games for the fans, it'd be awesome if you could like and subscribe. And Jimmy, what are we? I know it was shameless. 1,280 likes on this video, on this cast, on this series, and I'll cast another one. And I'll probably do it anyways. But thank you for watching. Thank you for tuning in. Hopefully you've had a good day so far. And hopefully it's about to get a little bit better. From what I understand, Ryung is bringing a different flavor of Terran to the table. He, by his own admission, is not as fast as he used to be. And sometimes that means you gotta work smarter and not harder. And now, there are some stereotypes again. That means probably Mech. Not to judge, but Mech is for more methodical, more pragmatic, and less micro-oriented players than Marin. And there's the second factory. All right. Instead of making it hypothetical, it's right in front of us. Ryung taking us to McDonald's for game number 1 in Alkione. Whereas I imagine Solar will be playing defense, as is, and seems to regularly be his lot in life. Unfortunately, not able to defend 2 Overlords, so no, I take it back. That was the first OV. It just got pushed out of the way. But Solar supply blocked for just a moment. Now, well, taking down those Overlords means it's a little less likely that really anything will be scouted early. There's not too much you can do to respond to the early Hell Clone kind of pressure, as it's just going to be Queens and Lings, and eventually, likely a Roach Warren. The only big downside for Solar would be if he skips the Roach Warren in favor of sneaking out a few more drones. As at some point, Zerglings just aren't going to get it done, and you need something with a little more stopping power. Third factory's on the way. Ever since Maru, well, really, it seems like all Terrans are taking a stab at Mech lately. Trying something a little bit different. As times go on, Zerg seem to adapt. That's kind of their thing. Lure accurately. So as players like Solar get more and more experience with dealing with certain timings, especially in the same map pool, the Terran players now mixing up. And Solar doesn't yet have a Roach Warren. He doesn't have a Lair. He's expecting a Liberator. That Spore Crawler on the edge of the main tells me that Solar has no idea that he's dealing with this. At least not yet. As you don't build Spore Crawlers against someone who's going Mass Cyclone. Unfortunately, you can't aim them down. Maybe next patch. But 5 clones at a time. Cyclone speed is in production. Solar keeps trying to sneak Zerglings in. He's got a Lair on the way. He's got the Roach Warren, very importantly. He's got 60 drones. But Ryung has successfully hidden this. Solar keeps sneaking more and more drones out. And Ryung is waiting until the last possible moment to send out the clones. Speed is about to complete. 4 Roaches on the way. And Solar about to be in for a bit of a rude awakening. He does have a 4th base in production. The Cyclones, well, the Zerglings are being so actively killed. I think Solar's starting to get real suspicious. And any suspicions will be confirmed momentarily as the Cyclones will be driving right onto the creep. And speed is already done. And Brenda, where did they come from? Oh my god! Sorry. The Zergling counter. Yeah, well, if you didn't know already. There's enough Queens with enough transfuse energy here that it doesn't look like Ryung wants to test it quite yet. And this is by no means all in. As he's got the armory, he started Blue Flame. 4th command center's on the way. Solar does have his 4th already finishing up, as well as an infestation pit in production. So, still plenty of tech available. And very interestingly, really no commitment. A lot of the time, Mech, it feels like you need to get a tempo advantage. You need to keep the creep pushed back, which he did succeed in. You need to try at least cut down on the queen count. But, so far, Ryung All he's done is pick off scouting Zerglings, and he's lost literally nothing. 4 Cyclones come in looking to assassinate a queen. Should be easily transfused there. But just sitting back and building more factories. Now, the moment of truth, I feel. Does he just go for ghosts blindly? Or does he wait till they're desperately needed? Because despite the strength of Mech, at some point the ghosts are pretty much required. You need to counter a late game or early game Zerg unit, that's what ghosts are for. So we'll see if Ryung ends up getting barracks in a ghost academy or if he's just going to try to max out on pure Mech, which can work right up until the Broodlords or the Vipers or the Infestors, or even to extent just the well-upgraded ground army is overwhelming him. Wow, still, we're just kind of flirting with the idea of fighting here. Things getting all hot and bothered, but that's mostly because of the Hellions with Blue Flame. A single Marine has died, which is about half the Marines that have been produced this game. Still got 1 at home. 2 brothers. Now 1, looking for vengeance. The Watchtower, quite a contentious point, especially dealing with these units. The amount of splash damage Ryung has, quite threatening. 3 more factories on the way. Gonna go up to 8 factories. The Ocho. Vipers for solar. And still holding off any sort of significant engagement. I think solar trying to trade away some roaches here. Free up some supply. Obviously don't want to lose them for free, but he does want to have a more late game oriented army. Brenda, where are we going? We're on the wrong side. The pathfinding doesn't care about creep. It just goes the quickest route, which is not, it's kind of discriminatory. Karen, just keep walking. All right. Lings. We'll take out the Hellions that try to drive by. The attack upgrade's done. There are 29 creep 31 creep tumors, 33 creep tumors in production between the creep tumors that are being spread and planted simultaneously. So that is, the technical term is a lot of creep tumors there. A hecton even. As the heck bats join the field. And Ryung is nearly maxed out. There are almost a dozen Cyclones on the way simultaneously. Ryung has, it seems, no interest in the ghosts as he's going for the pure Mech army. The starport's on the way. We'll see how Solar decides to engage. The Vipers, full of energy here. There are starports in production, so Ryung is not limiting himself to only factory tech. It is just the focus to start things off. Damn, how many Cyclones? He has 31 Cyclones right now. As at the 10, it's been effectively a no-rush 10-minute game, but that is about to end. The truce cannot hold. And the Cyclones will be surrounded. A lot of Zerglings will go down as well. The Vipers on the high ground, clearly spotted here. Vikings in production off just naked starports. Big Zergling counter, the Cyclones hunting the Queens. Vipers still full energy. I haven't used any of it yet. Gonna try to roll some Lingbane in towards the planetary. And the Zerglings to cover for now. The siege tanks, though. Great target fire out of Ryung. And is that enough to kill the planetary? I don't think so. He doesn't even bother. He's going to be able to save it. Solar, kind of a wasteful run by. He's now building 6 Broodlords, but Ryung has taken the center. He built a watchtower that he built a sensor tower that walls off the watchtower, which will actually help his units pathfind better. And not just because he can see. You know, that's the kind of stuff that I feel some player like Maru just doesn't do that. Not on a regular basis. Just build a sensor tower there. All right, why not have 2 flavors of watchtower? Also, it helps with the pathfinding, as mentioned. Yanks and the Vikings, but they will fly away, as they have a tendency to do. The Broodlords are driving things back. There goes the sensor tower. The Queen's underneath the Broodlords, but they can't do much without the creep here. Bit of an awkward fight. No high ground vision. The quick Brenda, get out of the way. Oh my god, you guys. You know, maybe the Terrans had a good idea with that sensor tech. Brenda, move. Oh my god. Jake. Well, the mediocre anti-air army. Are there any corruptors out in front, though? The Vikings just taking out the Broodlords. And the ground army is following it up, but so far, really no anti-air options. He's gonna lose 2 out of 6 Broodlords, make that 3. And Solar just not handling this. A huge mech army comes across the map. Solar has plenty of money in the bank, but he's not dealing with either side of this fight right now. The Cyclones will just chunk their way through. The Vikings are chasing down the Broodlords, which are acting essentially as expensive bait now. And on the ground, Blinding Cloud on a couple of the siege tanks, but that's barely half of them. And now more coming up. Solar having a tough time really finding an engagement at all. The Cyclone count, the Vikings. He has a half dozen or so, and there's no real anti-air. Here come the Queens, but they're just gonna take out the Vipers. Solar just not dealing with the problem at hand. The Cyclones just continually locking on and gunning down anything in front of them. The Vikings, their overlords out in front here. Corrosive Bow will clip a single clone, but there's no anti-air. The Vikings are going to supply block Solar if this goes on much longer. Another round of Banelings is rolling in. Roaches on the ground as well. The siege tank count is too low to deal with all of it. The Vikings will have to just look on as all the tanks are taken out. And Solar will clear most of the ground army and force the Cyclones to run away. And the Vikings, he's still building a dozen Cyclones at a time. I mean, they're barely more expensive than a Roach. Oh, a little more expensive. 125.50 though is not a huge price to pay for something that can so stably. And now Solar is hard supply blocked. 166 over 140 as the Vikings rampage, raid, and pillage throughout all the Zerg territory. Only the Queens here, but historically, Monarchs have had trouble with Vikings invading their lands. As now, 5 siege tanks, 3 Cyclones on the way. Solar's bank has absolutely evaporated. He's down to just 1,000. Oh, misses the mark. He's lost 4,000 more minerals, about equal gas. And the Vikings, why not? They just act as scouts. Ryung with a balmy 300 APM. Solar with 520, but I gotta say, one seems a bit more efficient with it. And as Ryung himself has mentioned, working smarter and not harder. This is effectively the low APM GSL challenge. As for reference, Maru and Clem both, especially Clem, usually go over 450. So, Gumiho, usually a bit slower at 350 to 400, but Ryung is, well, certainly efficient with it. At least so far. He hasn't taken any damage at home. Not really. He's lost 9 SCVs. I guess he's only killed 12 drones. But he's also killed 13 Overlords and 4 Overseers. Killing those Broodlords for essentially free is a pretty significant blunder out of Solar. And there's the Ghost Academy and 3 more wrecks. Which tells the story. Is there a casual Liberator? Queen, transfused, stand in front. But there's plating here, which is clearly showing up. As how many, it takes so many attacks for the Queens to kill him. That siege tank spread, he's got an engineering bay researching armor for his ghost. Just kind of casually on the front of anything. Everything. Both work. Cyclone drive-bys on both sides. Hellbats going into bat mode. Is that right? Yeah. Battle mode. I think that was the original, like, working title for the Hellbat was the Battle Hellion. Which, you know, I think Hellbat works better. And much cooler. And now Ryung done with 3-3, building a Thor, a Raven? A Raven? Well, I guess when you get older, you decide... Why do I keep criticizing? As one of the few players actually older than me in professional StarCraft today. Alright, thank you, Ryung, for showing the way. Put aside your principles of never building a Raven and instead accepting that it's probably worth it at this stage of the game. And, well, looking to drive in yet again. But that's a lot of Vipers. The Ghosts really aren't on the field yet. The Vikings are, though. Gonna take out one of the Vipers, make that 2. Blinding Cloud helping out. And again, the Planetary will live. The Orbital will not. Does he have many orbitals? 6 orbitals behind and 2 more command centers on the way. So not a massive economic blow. Scanning forward. The Ravager. Solar's done a great job of keeping that creep spread up. Always re-spreading it whenever he gets any space. An anti-armor missile comes out. Not going to be a huge deal, the Dorito dusting, but actually does... Well, it increases the DPS of the Cyclone significantly. And just is generally intimidating. Nobody likes going about their business with Dorito dust all over them. All right. Well, maybe Zerg are those sort of degenerates, but... I'm not here to judge. That's a lie. I definitely am. Meanwhile, though, Solar attempted Broodlords. He's now expanding to Ryung's side of the map. Ryung going to take offense to that. The ghost count is starting to grow. And Solar hasn't really tried Infestors yet. Infestors are tough to use against this amount of siege tanks, but at some point, once the ghost count gets too large, the burrowed Infestors are the only real tried and true method for holding them down to knock them out. Solar still has plenty of money in the bank. It's just he's not really making any progress. Is that 2 more Ghost Academies? I like what I'm seeing. The army value here for Ryung is 8K 5,200, almost double Solar's 49,200. So a very cheap and replaceable Zerg army against essentially the most expensive Terran can buy. Ghost dying to corrosive bile, Planetary taken out, and Solar is starting to lean on Ryung here, making it very difficult to really take an engagement. Solar just has 1 or 2 more two more bases at this stage to work with. Now, if Ryung is able to keep his bases and not... If Solar doesn't end up mining from Ryung's side of the map, it doesn't really matter how fast Ryung expands as long as he stays maxed out, because eventually he will mine all of his resources. But Solar is going to do his absolute best to not let that happen and try to use the extra economy he's gained from those extra bases. The Ravager lane coming in again. Corrosive biles across the board. And by that I mean in quite a localized area. 18 more SCVs die between a Baneling roll-by and an attack to the north. Ryung down to 46 workers, but he does have 7 orbital commands. So, should be shoring up the economy well enough. Solar maintains a pretty significant income lead. He's actually at 2,500 more minerals per minute, which is more than significant. That is a different tax bracket. Well, the ghosts line up some shots. Corrosive biles attempted. And there are the Infestors with Burrow on the way. Does he have Neural Parasite? He does not. But that's necessarily the goal, but certainly won't hurt. I think he can afford it. Ship weapons level 2 now completed. Quite a smattering of upgrades for Ryung. He's got +1/2 infantry, 3/3 ground mech, and 2/3 air mech. The Viper, almost dead, but gets a great blinding cloud right on the corner. Infestor casually strolling up, throws out a fungal. EMP late to the party, and the Infestor are going to be chased down, and Solar comes in again, but is going to be knocked out. Ryung has lost 2,000 more gas, but he's actually mined 2,000 more. Whereas Solar has lost 11,000 more minerals and mined about 10k extra. It's just what's on the field right now. Ryung really trying to take this bottom right corner. He's going to hold down the bridge. He built several Ghost Academies. He has yet to build the nukes out of them, which there's literally no other purpose. I guess for walling off, as they're one of the best buildings to wall off with, kind of hilariously. Ryung Ends up losing the Viking. But he's moving up with the rest of the army. The Raven has full energy here. Viper is taken out. Raven just happy to be here. More Overlords will go down, but Solar is able to deny the northern base yet again. The Queens have had enough of the Vikings. Ryung walled his siege tanks in with a Ghost Academy. Wow, that's a new one. I don't think I've seen that. Are they walled in, or they just can't go where they want to go? Well, he's gonna notice eventually. Solar takes out another base. And Ryung keeps getting battered down. Did he figure out the tanks? All right, how does he solve it? Oh wait, those were from a different factory. He may have built the reactor and walled them in, which is pretty amazing. Solar's out of minerals, but Ryung is also out of money. So Solar is treading a fine line here, economically, where he can max out, but he really doesn't have much left in the bank, whereas Ryung is also entirely broke, but it's kind of hard for Solar to tell, from his perspective here, exactly how broke Ryung is. He can take some educated guesses, but when the siege tank line is more than 5 or 6 tanks deep, it still looks quite intimidating. And there are 13 tanks on the field right now. The ghost count has been reset, and Ryung doesn't seem intent on rebuilding it. He's down to 1 at the moment, but instead favoring just some Hell clones, something a bit cheaper. You know, when you have only 50 gas, you're kind of boxed into a corner economically there. Solar's maxed out again. He's now mining from Ryung's side of the map. This is super important as we go to this supreme late game. That Ryung, he really needs to deny that base, as even 1 extra base may make all the difference here. But Ryung is maxed out for maybe the last time. Solar has another army ready to go. Blinding Cloud could be devastating. He hits multiple tanks and then pulls back with the Vipers. Anti-armor missile gonna help out. Baneling's still rolling through. Clears out the tanks, but he's fighting into a concave. As the Ravagers will... And the Hell Clones move in to take out the base to the north side. Ryung about even on supply. And a lot of the drones can be targeted. And the Solar doesn't have that many drones to spare. Wait a second. Okay, wait a second. The Hellions could be 30 drones! Oh, it's a disaster! Solar, economically ruined! The failed attack, he didn't dislodge Ryung entirely from that position. The infestors have not really made an appearance. Now the desperation festers, where you've run out of minerals and only have gas. He has to rebuild drones. That's so many Hell clones. We've been maxed out in upgrades for a while. Anti-armor missile coming in again, which is a great damage upgrade again for those Cyclones. He's throwing it out there. He's getting so much utility out of it. Oh, Parasitic Bomb on the Raven. It will finally kill it. It got that special attention from the Viper. A few more ghosts on the way, but now Ryung has the army supply lead and being equal on army value. Well, his army is actually worth almost twice as many minerals. Wow, that is a strong mecha army. Solar he's been trying to play a war of attrition, but Ryung has not really played into his hand. Ryung has been willing to kind of trade out the Hell clones and rebuild this mecha army. He's not going for the most super expensive, like, Mass Ghost Liberator. The Mass Ghost Liberator, that's a kind of army composition that if you break it once, you can probably work from there. But Ryung has just gone for kind of the equivalent of a Roach Ravager sort of army, with the Hell clones and siege tanks. Like, it isn't as costly to lose a fight, and it's pretty easy to split your army into efficient parts. He's now building ghosts. as we get to the very supreme late game here. And the minerals are mining out. There's still, with this infestor here, a very good... Genius. When you have... More Terrans need to do this. When you have 7 orbital commands, you just gotta start scanning. You can afford it. There's not even enough mineral patches to drop mules on at this stage. Don't be stingy. Remember, he lost the Raven as well. And is now rebuilding it after that successful scan. Ryung really epitomizing working smarter and not harder. Oh my god, the Hellion run by. Just incinerating more drones. Goes into Hellbat mode. Gonna drag the army out of position. Scans to the south. And Solar has not respected this army the entire game. And now, he's building 3 Broodlords. It just feels like Solar's been trying to play around Ryung. And at this point, there's no going around. He doesn't have any resources left. His drone count is minimum, like 44 drones. He has to, having to rebuild drones past the 20-minute mark is not a good sign. Ryung trundling along, but now he's the one starting to bank. Not gas, but when it comes to mineral-only units, Hellbats stack up pretty well against Zerglings. Solar has not really been able to make any use out of infestors. They've always been a bit too little and too late. And the ghosts aren't even really the centerpiece. It is just that brute force Hellclone army. Now Solar trying to slow the game down. Which, there's a big difference between playing defense and offense. We'll see. Did he see? He sees the changelings. Deals with them. Just scanning constantly. More command centers. Through all the fire and fury. Ryung has survived. And now... I gotta be careful with those banelings. He's just sending out small groups of Hell clones here. His base. How much gas is even left? 2,000. Whoa, 2,000. Yeah, that's still worth taking a look at. Solar, his gas income is now, I think, 1 base over there. And he uses this opportunity, catches the Broodlords out of position! The bait and switch, it worked too well. And there's an infestor underground, he throws an EMP at it. Parasitic Bomb is doing absolutely terrible, terrible damage. Infestor pops up, but the siege tanks are left untouched and are absolutely obliterating the Ravager line. There's enough Vikings left over alongside the Ghosts, and Ryung just powers his way through. Strong arms with the Mech army. And at the end of the day, Solar came up short. He lost 20,000 more minerals. And he only mined 10,000 more. He was 958 Zerglings, 160 Banelings. Well, but Ryung survives and strikes back with a bit of a more... I think the key is not going for that efficient late game. Not going for that super turtleneck, that Ghost Liberator. But instead, using these just groups of Hellclone with a handful of Ghosts and Siege tanks mixed in. So that way, you can never lose a decisive fight because you don't have an army that really costs that much to rebuild. I think it's playing particularly against how Solar plays as well. Solar has a tendency to just play this war of attrition, where that's why he's the Rocky Zerg. He survives, and then he wears you down. So at least he drags you down with him. But Ryung outlasts him here. The patience, overwhelming. And we go into hard lead with a double Reaper opener. I'm a bit I know, it feels a bit biased, but the way Ryung played that... Okay, how do I say this nicely? It feels like I could do that. Obviously not at that level. but the kind of style of how he went about it, just not fancy, not crazy micro, just strategically keeping Solar on the back foot. Now, would it work against the real committed sort of... I think it was a big mistake out of Solar with the Broodlords. You can't just throw away your first wave of Broodlords. Broodlords are supposed to be your endgame. Okay. Usually it doesn't matter how many you have. They are your endgame unit. So getting them killed and then just giving up on them felt maybe a bit... more than a bit of a mistake. This is the greediest Terran. Okay, so we went 2 racks into 2 extra command centers into 2 NG bays without any other production. He literally has 1 Marine at home. He's got the Threepers and 1 Marine. This is some Wings of Liberty greed here. Like, he does have the side of the map where your add-ons are protected. I don't know how much of a factor that is. Solar, I feel like Ryung is playing Solar more than he's playing Terran versus Zerg right now, because Solar is almost certainly not going to Bane Lane bust. He's not dark, okay? For better or worse. And you could argue both ways. But he's just going to see that you're sitting back and you're building bio, and he's going to try to out-macro. And Ryung is taking full advantage of that with the double engineering bay. His upgrades are going to be so good. Solar hasn't started any Evo chambers yet. He hasn't started a lair. If Ryung gets away with it, and it looks like he will, he's just going to have, like, maybe not a 1-1 timing, but the 2-2 timing is going to be decisive. Like, he's going to have at least a minute and a half upgrade advantage, which is absolutely ridiculous at this stage and at this level. The reason I say not a 1-1 timing is because he simply won't have the production online to take full advantage of that. But if he's able to keep the pressure on here, I think he's just baiting Solar into building more units. Yep. I wouldn't be surprised if Ryung just fully turns around now. He's like, no, build Zergling. Build Zergling. And then just walks home. Ryung is playing it like it's 2011. And it's working, is the beauty of it. Solar is building those units. He's building the Spore Crawlers back at home, even though Ryung doesn't even have a starport done yet. He's building the extra Zerglings, even though Ryung is walking home with those Marines. He doesn't have an Evo chamber, even though Ryung has 1-1 effectively done. He's going to have a full 2 upgrade advantage, and he's already got the armory on the way. Like, an actually full... This is unheard of. We'll see. The 2-2 for Ryung should be starting at about the same time as 1-1 for Solar. Just keeps baiting forward. Solar trying to find the minerals to get his upgrade. So it looks like he's going to go for the Mass Roach. He does have 66 drones set. There's the decoy Chutoy Depot. Intent on distracting any Zerglings, giving you a little bit of extra time. So let's see if he rallies to it, actually. No. Sometimes players will rally to it, so that way when it dies, the rally point gets reset to your buildings. So that way your units aren't running to their death. But also putting it at the depot wall also works. Going into the main. The roaches will be revealed. Does that change up the build out of Ryung at all? It looks like he's switching over to a second factory and a tech lab factory as well. The Queens don't have the vision here, and one gets gunned down. The rest, well, they'll expect one of us in the wreckage, brother. Down goes 1 Marine. Hive is on the way. Overlord's dying. Gonna try to gun down the Spore Crawler. It will actually run away. And he gets out. Oh, almost dodges right back in. Ryung keeping the pressure on. He's got 2-2 on the way, but his supply is actually remarkably low. He hasn't really brought his production to bear yet, so it looks like he's not going to be able to use that 2-2 timing particularly aggressively. Yeah, it definitely feels like his production has been lacking. All right, then. Interesting choice. Has he walled off another siege tank, or is he intentionally bringing that to the high ground? Pretty sure it's intentional. Hive is on the way for Solar, who didn't decide on an all-in roach timing, but instead is going all the way up to Hive. Queens taking the brunt of these drops. The Marines eventually pile into the medevacs. Infantry armor level 2 completed. So now a full 2 upgrade advantage, which means even the Marines going to be a real threat to the roaches. Targets database, even throws out a few grenades for flavor. And the Zerglings streaming in. There's an Ultralisk cavern on the way. Now that's definitely a dangerous one. It is going to be spotted by the medevacs, more than likely. We should see a Ghost Academy momentarily if he does spot it. I don't think there is one yet. He didn't see it, right? No. Pretty far off. Which could definitely cost him, as the upgrades don't matter too much against the chitinous plating Ultralisks. Solar is shifted into the Ling Bane, working on Baneling speed. Adrenal glands halfway done. Scanning through. And stimming in. Looking for more. Solar supply blocked at 192. Wow, he's got a lot of creep tumors queued up here. Very focused on keeping that creep up. 3-3 starts for Ryung, but not as much of an advantage on that one. Viper's consuming the Hive, which I always question a little bit. We'll see if that comes back to bite him at all. Chitinous plating on the way. The double drop, I think, including the Reapers, but the Queens slaughtered. Regicide on the western side of the map. Half a dozen Queens taken out. The Widow Mines, incredibly dangerous to everyone involved. Parasitic Bomb, dangerous. An incredibly dangerous trap. I don't think it has the... Oh my god, oh my god. Oh wow, another Parabomb. There will be no one coming home. Well, actually, one medevac survives. How many Queens are left? Only 3. But the medevac's into the 3rd as well. He's just targeting the spawning pool, which means the Marines will be melted by the Banelings. And Ryung, struggling on all fronts, goes from a decisive victory in the fight with the mines and looking for another good one in the same situation to a bit of a mixed bag. He's now lost 5 medevacs. He's unable to deal with the Ultras head on. He does not... Oh, he does have a Ghost Academy, but no ghosts. He's just building Marauders and Liberators and Siege Tanks, all of which are good. But it's the Ghosts that are usually much better. Another drop headed in. Ryung, well, the Expendables come in for another pass. The Ultras are there. Ryung tried to throw the game kind of into chaos. I don't know how much of it was intentional and how much of it was just... working with the situation. But here we are. Two starports on the way. I love Ryung's willingness to just add multiple production facilities. He's really working on the creep across the board here, too. Guns down. A Viper. The Ghosts are building. Does he have Ghost Cloak? No. No building upgrades quite yet either. Though it looks like we're getting there. He doesn't have much gas in the bank. Ultra's chewing through the rocks trying to open up the map here. Ryung has been able to keep on so much pressure. But he's losing his he's losing his grip on the situation. Just like I'm losing my grip on my words. Oh, God, the Widowmine hits are devastating here. across the board. Yanks out the Liberators. Baneling still rolling through. Ghost chewed to pieces. Only a couple survivors. And Ryung, well, he gets cleared from the center base. Another Widow Mine gonna do big damage across the board. Down to 1 Ultra. Once as it loses a Ghost to the Corrosive Vial. But definitely, he's fighting a war of attrition yet again. And right now, well, that was a bloody battle indeed. Let's see. Solar has lost 5,000 more resources, almost all of them minerals. Ryung trying to build a couple more command centers, pretty much wherever he has space, it looks like. +2 melee attacks just now done. Another drop is coming in, just right-clicked onto the hatchery. He will get it. Able to lift up. Almost all of the units get out. Almost. Solar has expanded over to the left side, finished up another hatch. Is 86 drones, so his economy still swimming along. A Venn diagram of freedom overlapping to cover the planetary... Is that an Ultra at the watchtower? Okay. Just stand still. Do your best Zergling impression. No, the drop comes in. Another hatch, forced to cancel, and then most of the Marines and Marauders abandoned. Oh, more shots. I think he took out an Overseer there. Solar has a penchant for losing Overlords and Overseers. Hard not to against these sort of armies, but very important to always have at least 1 Overseer. Otherwise, those minefields start adding up. Spire has done no greater Spire. He's trying to deal with this mass of Liberators. Interesting we see so many more Liberators with the Bio Army than we did with Mech. Where he went for a more conventional, or more, I guess conventional Vikings alongside the ground army. I guess he is against Ultralisks this time. The Liberators can have real effect. Widow Mine's taken out, but wait, there's more. Ryung still keeping a lot of pressure on. Widow Mine will burrow. Medevac taken out. I think he was optimistic to drop back at that western base. Another mine. Solar splits. More drops. Oh, well, not always bringing everyone. There's the Greater Spire. Oh, stand very still. Oh, no! Dave, I told you not to... Fusion core on the way. Advanced ballistics looks to be on the horizon. The Vipers lined up. EMP knocked out. Ghost take him out. Ooh, Widow Mine connects again. Oh, the Banelings into the rocks. Stressful game clearly thus far. But Ryung is starting to stabilize. He has so many command centers. He has 5 orbitals, building 2 more, and 2 more command centers in general. Triple drop headed north. 4 Liberators at a time. The Greater Spire's on the way, but one thing we do not see from Solar. Infestors. Still, no Infestors. Nothing to really hold down the Ghosts. They're not the be-all, end-all against Liberators, but Corruptors have a much more direct path of dealing with them. Corruptors not so good against Ghosts. And without the Infestors, it feels like Solar is just waiting for Ryung to make a mistake. That Widow Mine. Ghost Cloak. This time a nuke. We didn't get to see any nukes in the previous game. Despite the multiple Ghost Academies. The Ghosts will line up a shot and obliterate that Ultralisk. Another triple drop. The command center's creating quite a choke point here. He cloaks the Ghosts, but Overseer's overhead. Actually, the Ghosts are able to retreat rather far. The Overseer's getting caught a little far back. Deals with the Changeling. Solar was trying to expand to the bottom left corner. Meanwhile, Solar rotates around again. Looks for the center, but again, the Sim City is good. Where are the Corruptors going? Hello? Oh no, he lost track of them. He's on the other side dealing with this drop. The Widow Mine, I think, did about as much. Every single Corruptor died. It's an absolute disaster. He can afford to rebuild those, but there's no reason that. This time it wasn't Broodlords, it was the Corruptors themselves, but that's like 1,000 gas that just died doing nothing. Just nothing. Ryung will take advantage. And I can't help but feel like this Ryung is holding the line, and he's able to hold on to his bases. That's the most important part. Solar is not successfully breaking these planetaries. He's not successfully denying bases. Which means as time goes on, it's going to be harder and harder to do so. That bottom left corner is the last place he's really made a big effort. And now a nuclear missile is launched onto Solar's base. Solar historically has taken an inordinate amount of damage to these things. And right now, come on. Okay, the Ghost. And the nuke flies slightly off the map. Heard it coming down, but not quite there. Still playing with nuclear fire. 15 Ghosts. 10 Liberators here. More Liberators being chased down by Corruptors in towards the to the ends of the Earth. Or at least the map. The flat map. Ryung, I think, just trading out these Marines. Wants to replace them with Liberators and Ghosts. He's now building more Ghost Academies. 3 more starports as well. A drone coming down to try to expand to the bottom left corner. Solar will have to bop that again. Now 4 Infestors on the way. Something to deal with this. The Planetary, does he have the building? Yes, he has building armor and high-sec auto-tracking, which means the Banelings and the Ultras are quite required to break into this location. The Liberator count is so damn high. 8 Broodlords and 4 Infestors on the way. Yes, an old composition, but indeed it checks out. One of the oldest late-game compositions. Definitely not the same stopping power it once had, though. We'll see. A nuclear missile. And the Ghost just unloading onto the Broodlords. There simply aren't enough of them. And we'll force the Spore Crawlers back with the nuke. The Infestors just kind of wandering by into the nuke. A nuke with a surprisingly small radius kills a couple spores. The Liberators will ward them off the orbital here. Bit of an awkward fight indeed. Ryung keeps trying to take the base, but he's just pushing his way forward. He's almost sliced the map in half. With Liberators and Planetaries and turrets covering absolutely everything right now. It's just that back left corner that he can't quite hold on to at the moment. Alright, gets back into the mineral line. Ultra's having a real tough go of it. There's 3 nukes on the way. 6 Vikings, a Raven. So essentially right now, Ryung is just doing a Bronze to GM challenge. Alright, go Ghost Raven nuke with Vikings. It's like, okay. But this won't work against real players. Well, it hasn't worked yet, but Solar's down to 1,200 gas. Ryung now has a larger bank overall. And just in both fronts, it actually kind of seems as well. As Solar is unable to keep Ryung off that base in the bottom left corner. Right now, he's being zoned out, but it's not like Solar is taking it himself. A nuke on the left. The Spine Crawlers, will he spot it? Solar scans across. He's scanning everywhere, I think, to cover for it. And he baits him. He realizes, but the Spines. Another nuke. Ryung is calling it down right. Another nuke. I think this one's in range of the Spore. He's trying to catch the reinforcements and he just keeps scanning everywhere. I think Solar heard the nuke, but now he's pinned him in the corner, and the Ghost will gut him down. What a play by Ryung. Ryung will lose a lot of the ghosts for this. But he set it all up with the nukes. He boxed him in. The Mass Infestor Broodlord. But Ryung is outmaneuvering with nuclear missiles. Well, so obviously if the nuke lands on the Broodlords, Solar will be repeating history. But I love what Ryung is doing with the mass scan. Well, one, because he can EMP all the infestors, and two, oh my god, anti-armor missile plus liberators! Wait, where's the anti-air? The Vikings and liberators just win. There's no corruptors. He was relying on essentially just Infestor Viper for anti-air. I think Solar may have forgotten that liberators have an anti-air attack. And also the Viking count comes as a surprise as well. But Ryung dropping mules to repair his planetary. What a play! Wow. Ryung, one of the oldest players in the game, has successfully outplayed Solar. Yeah, this fight doesn't matter anymore. Well. Wow, I want to go back, actually. That was a beautiful... Obviously, it was off the back of the EMPs and all of that, but... Did he just not have any corruptors? Well, that is clearly a massive mistake, but Ryung hid all the Vikings he produced. He hadn't showed them until this point. He had not lost any, he had not showed any Vikings until this moment. And obviously a huge mistake, but strategically, throughout this entire series, I think Ryung just works smarter, not harder. Ends the game with 347 APM to 500. Still, quite a respectable number, but significantly lower than many other Terran players. Oh no. It's just this different flavor of late game. 18 corruptors in production, but the Vikings once again swoop in for a decisive victory. The mass nukes. Wow. Looks like he got his bell Ryung'd. A 2-0 decisive victory. Well, that certainly was something different. So, hopefully you enjoyed. Hopefully it made your day a little bit better. And if you got the means of motivation, be awesome to check out Patreon or YouTube membership. But I hear liking and subscribing is still free for now. And if you haven't yet checked out the second channel for streams and even more videos, yes, Winter Gaming TV, or check the description. And if you're looking for more casts, it's awesome if you go from the recommended. That's what YouTube recommends. I recommend to you. But otherwise, thank you for watching. I hope I made your day just a little bit better. I'll see you next time. Good luck, have fun. Stay chill.